who asked a sexual assault complainant why she didn't keep her knees together. Marijuana shops raided by police in 3 cities. Charges laid. How does that fit with the government's plan to legalize pot?
It's not a gray area.
And yes, it's Thursday. Yes, that means At Issue. Lots on tap for tonight. Plus, Rex is here. He's talking about, wait for it, René Lévesque. There's been an official apology from the government, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, acknowledgement that the residential school system reflects a dark period in Canada's history. So, when a Canadian senator said in the Red Chamber that she wished the Commission's report had focused on the good that came out of the residential school system, it elicited stunned silence from some, anger from many, and calls for her resignation. Katie Simpson has the story.
As the Speaker's parade marked the start of today's sitting in the Senate, one member was noticeably absent. Senator Lynn Bayek was nowhere to be seen as calls for her resignation emerged over her defense of the residential school system.
It equals saying that what Hitler did to the Jewish was good.
NDP MP Romeo Saganash is a residential school survivor and wants the Conservative senator to step down for comments she made on Tuesday. Bayek offered unprompted support of residential schools during a Senate discussion on Indigenous women in prison.
In memory of the kindly and well-intentioned men and women and their descendants, perhaps some of us here in this chamber, whose remarkable works, good deeds, and historical tales in the residential schools go unacknowledged for the most part.
The comments stunned fellow Senator Murray Sinclair, who oversaw the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
I am a bit shocked that you still hold some views that have been proven to be incorrect over the years, but nonetheless, I accept that you have the right to hold them.
Bayek, who is a member of the Aboriginal Peoples Committee, has made similar comments in the past, telling senators in January, "I was disappointed in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report in that it didn't focus on the good." A small minority of former students have indeed spoken of positive experiences at the schools.
So we always have to balance these positive stories that we hear with what was really going on.
After a 6-year study, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission described Canada's residential school system as cultural genocide. An estimated 6,000 children died, even more endured sexual, physical, and emotional abuse.
I've seen nothing good come out of residential schools, and I've seen a lot of heartache and death and suicides, and you will never hear me espouse one good word about residential schools.
Conservatives are distancing themselves from the comments, while the Indigenous Affairs Minister says this is a reminder Canadians need to be better educated on the issue.
Survivors, families, and communities are still dealing with the intergenerational trauma resulting from Indian residential schools. We must be all united in supporting them.
Tonight, calls are growing for Senator Bayek to resign. In a statement, the Indigenous Liberal Caucus demanded she step down and apologize. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Alberta judge who gained notoriety for asking a sexual assault complainant during a trial why she didn't just keep her knees together has resigned. Justice Robin Camp said he would step down hours after the Canadian Judicial Council recommended he be removed from the bench. Catherine Cullen has more.
For months, Justice Robin Camp fought to keep his job, even though he called his own conduct disgraceful. In a 2014 sexual assault trial, Camp repeatedly called the alleged victim the accused. He asked her, why couldn't you just keep your knees together? Today, those tasked with judging the judge tore into him. A majority on the Canadian Judicial Council said Camp's conduct was so manifestly and profoundly destructive of the concept of impartiality, integrity, and independence that he had undermined public confidence and that he had been rendered incapable of executing the judicial office. Canada's Justice Minister promised to start the process of stripping him of his job.
That the House agree with the Canadian Judicial Council's recommendation to remove Justice Robin Camp from the Federal Court of Canada.
But about an hour later, Camp announced in a statement that he was resigning, effective tomorrow, adding, "I would like to express my sincere apology to everyone who was hurt by my comments during the sexual assault trial." One of the first people to launch a complaint against Camp says she's glad he didn't draw this out further.
Judges make mistakes all the time. It's a hard job, but that it went beyond that to a pervasive disregard for the law and disregard for the complainant.
Many see a bigger problem than just Camp. This former judge says she was troubled while presiding over sexual assault cases.
I found a lot of that process extremely difficult, particularly the adversary system and its effects on complainants and sexual assault victims. It's an extremely brutal process.
The Conservatives' interim leader has proposed legislation that would require all new federally appointed judges to have training in sexual assault law. Just yesterday, all parties agreed together to fast-track that plan. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
And we'll talk more about that story and others later tonight on At Issue. The Prime Minister is in Texas oil country tonight to get an award at an international energy conference. Justin Trudeau is being recognized for his approach to the challenges around energy and environment that the entire planet faces. He was also giving the keynote address. The 5-day conference brings together energy executives, politicians, clean tech companies, and policymakers from around the world. After more than 40 years, survivors of a deadly explosion will receive a settlement from the government.
We are truly sorry for the pain you have endured, and we deeply regret how long it took to address it.
It happened in 1974 at a camp for cadets in Valcartier. During a lesson about explosives, a grenade thought to be inactive went off. 6 boys were killed, dozens more injured. For decades, survivors hid physical and psychological injuries. 2 years ago, an ombudsman report criticized how the armed forces dealt with the incident. The settlement will give survivors at least $42,000 each. Police have carried out raids on a chain of marijuana shops thousands of kilometers apart, arresting 2 high-profile pot activists. Mark and Jody Emery are now facing a string of drug charges. Renee Filipponi has the story.
Security video of a police raid today inside a Toronto pot shop.
These were all full. They took tens of thousands of dollars of product.
It's a scene that played out in several cities.
I had a feeling as soon as I saw the police vest, I knew.
As officers executed warrants on behalf of Toronto police at cannabis culture stores in Hamilton and Vancouver. Cannabis culture sells recreational pot, which is still illegal. Behind it all, the self-proclaimed Prince of Pot himself, Mark Emery, and his activist wife, Jody Emery.
The law, in spite of what dispensary owners will claim, is not gray. It's absolutely black and white. Dispensaries are illegal, and as long as the law makes it clear they're illegal, we'll continue to enforce the law.
The couple was arrested at the airport on their way to a pot festival in Europe. They are facing multiple charges, including trafficking marijuana, conspiracy to commit an indictable offense, and possession of the proceeds of crime.
Both were in decent spirits, as decent as you can be in when you're locked in a cage and your liberty's been restricted and deprived for no good reason.
They have been arrested before, most recently in December, following a string of raids in Montreal. He was charged and released on bail. Mark Emery spent more than 4 years in a U.S. prison for selling marijuana seeds to American customers. Toronto's Erin Goodwin is one of 3 others charged today.
I've been working to fight for legalization for a long time, and I won't give up.
Outside the courthouse, advocates question why the crackdown now.
They're breaking the law where they're breaking an unjust law because the federal government has promised that they were going to legalize marijuana right away.
The Liberal government did campaign on a promise to legalize pot. Legislation is expected this spring.
People need to recognize that things take time. This is something that has to be done correctly. It's something that we feel very strongly about as a government.
For the Emerys, it's another night in custody as they await bail conditions on these charges. The cost for them of flouting the law in what they see as activism. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Toronto.
Police in Edmonton have laid charges over a shocking road rage incident we told you about last night. The victim, a 34-year-old woman, sustained 2 broken arms after another driver followed her home and beat her with a crowbar. The 28-year-old male driver of that other car is now facing 3 charges, including attempted murder. He'll appear in court on Monday. Police in Quebec are investigating the kidnapping of a prominent businessman at gunpoint. Nicolas Souflidi was found tied up in a ditch in Laval early today, 8 hours after being forced from his home nearby. He sustained minor injuries. Police are looking for at least 2 suspects. Souflidi is president of a breakfast restaurant chain with 130 locations across Canada.
They were operating in the vicinity of Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and during a parachute drop, unfortunately, there was a malfunction of some sort.
The military says it has launched a formal investigation into the death of a search and rescue technician. Master Corporal Alfred Barr was killed during routine training yesterday. He joined the armed forces in 2009. Coming up.
I'm Nala Ayed in Tehran. Imagine one art collection that includes precious pieces from Degas, Warhol, Van Gogh, and Picasso. Now imagine all that locked away in a vault in Tehran. I'll have that story for you later on The National.
U.S. and Iraqi officials believe the leader of ISIS has fled the Battle of Mosul. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announced his caliphate at the city's Grand Mosque in 2014. It's not known where he is now. The U.S.-led coalition has been fighting to oust ISIS from Mosul since October. The city is the group's last stronghold in Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are believed to be trapped in ISIS-held neighborhoods. Iraqi troops are said to be preparing for heavy fighting in the densely populated old city. In Syria, an additional 400 American troops are joining 500 already on the ground. They are preparing for a coalition offensive against ISIS in its self-declared capital, Raqqa. In a rare public display within Syria, U.S. vehicles are openly flying the American flag. In Afghanistan, patients at a military hospital in Kabul are being treated for injuries sustained yesterday in an attack on the hospital itself. At least 30 people were killed. Gunmen disguised as medical staff battled security forces for hours. ISIS has claimed responsibility. Uber's had a rough ride so far in 2017. The world's most valuable startup has seen a series of missteps and controversies. Not surprising, then, that the CEO is now looking for a second in command to help drive the ride-sharing company forward. But has the damage already been done? The CBC's Kim Brunhuber has the story.
It was a company born with brass knuckles. To survive, Uber had to crush taxi unions and bash governments into submission. That brawling culture turned it into a global brand valued at around $70 billion. But the company spent most of 2017 basically punching itself in the face. First, a former Uber engineer made allegations of widespread sexual harassment and abusive behavior. Then, about 200,000 people deleted the app after Uber's CEO agreed to participate in a roundtable with President Trump and was accused of trying to profit from a taxi strike protesting Trump's travel ban.
They blame everything in their life on somebody else.
CEO Travis Kalanick was caught on camera yelling at an Uber driver who said he had lost money working for the company.
This is built on a Volvo XC90.
Even the company's good news stories have gone bad. During testing, Uber's self-driving cars blew through 6 red lights.
On the top there in the center, that's a scanning laser rangefinder.
And some of the sensors on this Uber self-driving truck rely on technology that was allegedly stolen from Google by a former employee. Uber denies it. Google's suing.
That represents a very significant challenge for Uber and could end up either killing the company or resulting in the type of payout that would significantly impact Uber's profits over time.
No real major complaints.
At Uber headquarters, I spoke to the company's head of driver experience. He says Uber's CEO apologized for his outburst and will make sure everyone at the company is treated with respect.
There's an investigation that's happening internally that will hopefully lead to some change within the company.
With criticism mounting, this week the CEO announced he will hire someone to help him run the company. But this branding expert thinks the loyalty of many customers and drivers may already have been lost.
They forgot about the one thing that matters the most for any brand, which is people.
And now Uber's facing more competition, not just from rival Lyft, but from smaller companies that specialize.
Hands in.
Like Zoom, which offers an Uber-type service for kids. Every year, new alternatives spring up for those fed up with Uber.
There's not so much brand loyalty at this point yet because it's such a young company.
Analysts say the lesson for hyper-aggressive Silicon Valley is this: if you lose sight of what made you cool in the first place, you may not be cool for long. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, San Francisco.
Death may be a certainty, but planning a funeral is something few of us prepare for. Our colleagues at CBC Marketplace, in cooperation with the Toronto Star, heard from many Canadians about the pressures faced by grieving families to pay for services they may not want or need. David Common has this glimpse inside the world of funeral homes in this hidden camera investigation.
Canada's funeral business is big and changing fast. Large chains are moving in and taking over small funeral homes. They're set on expansion and on sales. But what about sympathy?
There is a significant portion of the industry that has geared itself toward one goal, and that is to maximize profit at any cost.
Okay, so this is the
Judy Wood believes that too. When her sister died, Judy was in for a double shock.
How much did the casket cost you?
$895.
So we managed to get the wholesale cost for that. It was $175. So that's a more than $700 markup.
Mm-hmm.
Marketplace heard many complaints, so we took hidden cameras inside the largest Canadian funeral chain.
So altogether, we'd be looking at just about $12,500 from beginning to end.
These are multiple funeral homes owned by Arbor Memorial.
$1,895. That's your starting point.
$2,500, $33,000, $4,000, $7,000.
All these salespeople are on commission. It's in their financial interest to sell to you. Maybe a package full of items you've rarely, if ever, seen.
Do we need everything on there?
A couple items are. 98% is mandatory.
But insider Shane Neufeld says that isn't true. He found a third of it, $2,000, could easily be cut, including embalming. It's often not needed.
The consumer is at an extreme disadvantage. You can't possibly come out on the right side of that if you're in front of people who are motivated to sell you things that you don't need.
Arbor Memorial tells us they have zero tolerance for any behavior that may cause customers to feel pressure. But it is a sales environment changing the makeup of the funeral business in this country. Independent funeral homes still do most of the services, but the big and ever-expanding chains are making the most money. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
And for a lot more on the sales pitch inside funeral homes, tune in to Marketplace. That's tomorrow on CBC Television at 8:30 in Newfoundland. Sunday at 5 Eastern on CBC News Network. And you can also watch on YouTube. An Ottawa school board has issued an apology after an elementary school teacher gave a haircut to an autistic boy without his mother's consent.
For a teacher to grab scissors and cut a child's hair, that takes away my son's voice and it takes away my voice as a parent.
7-year-old Dominic Brandon is in a special needs class. The teacher who cut his hair is now on home assignment pending the outcome of an investigation. Dominic's mother says she plans to move her son to another school after March break. A reminder, we will be taking your questions on Facebook Live during our second commercial break. But straight ahead, our regular Thursday night lineup. Jennifer Ditchburn joins Andrew and Chantel on At Issue. And then Rex comes by just a little later.
The National with Peter Mansbridge.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm Peter Mansbridge, and this is The National. Well, we are a long way from our usual cozy studio tonight. It's about 3,000 kilometers that way. This is the Northwest Passage. We're in a shaft at the old Syndicate coal mines here in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. These are unusual surroundings for The National. We're about an hour north of Fort McMurray, from Stratford, Ontario, in Delta, British Columbia, from Parliament Hill in Saskatoon, going live off the deck of an icebreaker in Vancouver. From Montreal, once again tonight, a city at the heart of a crisis in the cold. Do you worry about the ice?
Yes, I do, yeah. What's going to happen if it all melts away?
Oh, jolly we miner men, and miner men are we. They've all worked the coal mines in Cape Breton. Now they sing to preserve the heritage and the folklore of the island's mining communities. Canada is still here tonight, but just barely. Quebecers have voted no to sovereignty. But of course, the story the whole world is watching is the historic switch to the year 2000. This is the day that Winnipeg has been waiting for, worrying about, even dreading. Good evening, I'm Peter Mansbridge from downtown Toronto. For the most part, an eerily dark Toronto. Good evening, I'm Peter Mansbridge, inside Vatican City. Good evening from the Netherlands, Baghdad. In Tiananmen Square tonight from London. In Vimy Ridge, France. From Kandahar, Afghanistan. Here in Berlin, there's another opening in the wall tonight, number 22. When the waves crashed ashore here and they didn't have far to come, there's the beach line. Our ride today is on an Israeli Air Force Black Hawk helicopter. That is the area that the suicide bombers used to get to some of their targets. Look at this. Those are the papal apartments just over on the other side. That's where the Pope lives. As night falls, we're back on the road, moving through the streets of Kandahar, and as always, on the lookout. Thanks for watching. Okay, we've got some ground to cover tonight, so let's get right at it. Andrew's here in Toronto, Chantal is in Montreal, and Jennifer Ditchburn joins us this week from Ottawa. I want to start on NAFTA, of all things. We have the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Wilbur Ross, making it pretty clear in remarks he's made in the last couple of days that this is not a tweaking in terms of the negotiations between Canada and the United States. They could take at least a year, and there's some serious stuff on the table. Donald Trump said it was going to be tweaks. I don't think anybody really believed him, but this seems a long way from tweaks. Andrew.
It certainly shows that what Donald Trump says and what actually happens are often two different things, and he's got people around him who are much more ideological than he is on these questions and who do not share the broad free trading consensus. They're obsessed with things like the trade deficit, which any economist can tell you is not a big deal, nothing that should be made an object of policy. And yeah, we're going to get into negotiations in which who knows what kind of demands could be made of us. We've got to think about what kinds of things we can make concessions on and what kinds of things we can't. Some of the things, oftentimes in trade negotiations, classically considered, the things that are identified as concessions aren't really concessions at all. So if, for example, he was to demand that we get rid of supply management, I'd have no problem. But if it gets into other things, then we've got to consider what's our bargaining leverage, because we can't necessarily assume they'll be affected by the same considerations that other politicians would be, and what are we prepared to walk away from the table over?
All right. Chantal, it's wonderful how Andrew always gets supply management into this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Chantal, how worried should Canada be? Are we ready for hardball negotiations? I mean, we got to think back 20 years or so, the Simon Reisman days and negotiations. But does Canada look ready for these kind of negotiations if this, in fact, is what they're going to be?
we have an advantage over 20 years ago from the internal point of view, in the sense that back then Brian Mulroney had to look over his shoulder at the Liberals and how they were going to be taking shots at him, or at Ontario, which opposed back then, remember, the FTA. So with the exception of the NDP on the left side of the spectrum, there's a pretty broad consensus of where our so-called national economic interest rests. The good news is that we do have a lot of time to try to build alliances, to lobby actually senators who would want part of the status quo, or a lot of it, to be preserved. The bad news is that this also gives every lobby in the United States that wants concession a lot of time to put pressure on elected officials in Congress.
Jennifer, where are you on this?
Well, I think we're probably as ready as we could ever be. Consider what our negotiators have been doing for X number of years. They've been negotiating the trade deal with the European Union. They've been negotiating the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We have some real incredible firepower in terms of negotiators, people who know the smallest detail of trade negotiations. I'm talking about Steve Rahul, Kirsten Hillman, and now we're hearing that one of the original NAFTA lawyers and negotiators, Jonathan Freed, has come back to Canada from where he was at the WTO. So, I mean, from my understanding of talking to people, in terms of our own personal firepower in terms of dealing with the United States, Canada is incredibly well equipped.
You know, those remarks from Ross and some other signals out of the U.S. and out of Washington specifically in the last few days have made some wonder about just how much of a budget the budget on March 22nd is going to be, that it may be kind of like budget light, not too much until the Americans play more of their hand. Would that make sense, Andrew?
It does. That is one of the considerations, is if we're going to see major tax cuts, for example, in the United States, that implies, you know, big things in terms of competitiveness in Canada that they have to take account of. And so some of the revenue forecasts that they might have been counting on in years out aren't necessarily going to be there for them if they want to match or come close to those kinds of tax cuts. So I can see the degree to which that would induce some uncertainty, and also some uncertainty in the economic outlook. It's one thing for people to be saying, oh, you know, the market's going yippee, they're going to cut taxes and deregulate. But if they're as crazy on trade policy as they appear to be, that has major implications for the world economy, and again is another source of uncertainty in anybody's forecasts.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, they've put off a major tax review that they were going to do. I think that's a pretty big signal that they're kind of waiting to see what happens. But there's certain things that they can't really push off much longer. They've promised that this is going to be the innovation budget, so people are going to be looking very closely to see exactly what they do to get Canada ahead on that. And there's also a lot of strong signals that they're going to be focused on skills training and preparing Canadians for a workforce that's changing more quickly than anybody could imagine with automation and everything else. So I think there's going to have to be something interesting in there. But also important to point out, there was all this new money that suddenly appeared in the fall economic update. So you see that they seem to be less predictable maybe than previous governments in terms of when money is being rolled out and whether the budget is the big thing, or maybe it's the fall economic update.
Chantal, I want to move you on to this question of nominations inside the Liberal Party. I mean, we're not consumed by this story or by the fact there are by-elections coming up, but something happened last night in a Quebec riding in Saint-Laurent, where the Liberals, Stéphane Dion's riding, where the Liberals had expected a certain person was going to win the nomination. It's kind of like the party favorite or the leader's favorite. That's not what happened. And because what did happened, what should we make of it all?
Signal certainly to Justin Trudeau that local Liberal members do take seriously the notion that he is letting them choose their own members. Now, this was a three-way race, and the dynamics made the least expected candidate win, and the two frontrunners bite the dust. What was more important was that the former Quebec minister, Yolande James, who had been identified as the preferred choice by the PMO, finished third on the first ballot. And that's a pretty powerful signal. Now, keep in mind, you're talking about a riding that was given to Stéphane Dion, handed by Jean Chrétien after the referendum. The rationale then was not that Mr. Dion had a link to the riding. It was that Jean Chrétien had need of Francophone Quebec ministers, and here was a riding, and there was Stéphane Dion. So 20 years on, I think the people of Saint Laurent had been waiting a long time to the Liberal members to elect someone they wanted and to send a message to Justin Trudeau that if he means that, they are taking him to his word.
Andrew?
It wasn't just that there was a preferred candidate, it's that they screened out another candidate without telling anybody why, who was viewed as being a very credible candidate. So I wonder how much of that vote was a protest vote, maybe from some of his supporters who were saying, you know, this was a dirty pool.
Jennifer, your thoughts on that?
I guess they seem to be conflicted between the way that the party's run for most of its history and what they're promising now. And I think that they've raised expectations so high that they're going to have a more open and transparent process, but they're still stuck to the old way of doing things. The Conservatives had these kinds of issues as well. They had they had people that were rejected for nominations and had those kinds of troubles. But in general, they were more open. And so I think that the Liberals are just struggling to know what they are in terms of being an open party or still being a very sort of top-down, hierarchical type party.
I want to try something else on you today about one of our top stories tonight, because it had a lot of people talking today, and it's the question of the resignation of Justice Robin Camp after what's been like a 2 or 3 year discussion about remarks he made, which he himself has eventually said were disgraceful. They came during a sexual assault case. A lot of focus on those remarks in the news tonight. But here's the question, and Jennifer, try it for me if you will. The leader of the opposition, Rona Ambrose, has asked for a bill. She's been asking for this for some time. She's asked for that bill that she introduced about education for judges on sexual assault to be fast-tracked. Now, what does that say that she'd actually have to even introduce a bill like that?
No, I think it says that she's very correctly identified a problem in how our justice system deals with victims of sexual assault. And it's not just in this case. Of course, there's a recent case in Halifax, I believe, where alleged sexual assault victim in a taxi cab who was drunk, the person in that case was acquitted. And I think a lot of people are upset with hearing how these cases are being decided in the courts, how well judges are trained around the ideas of around the concept of consent, and and the behavior of women during these assaults or after the assaults. So I think that Rona Ambrose is pretty bang on when she's saying let's have a better training for judges in these kinds of situations.
Well, you know, a training school for judges there's just something about it. It sounds odd. You figure, you know, in society, when somebody becomes a judge, a federal judge, that they have reached a certain level of understanding about the things that play out in society. Plus, there's the assumption that somewhere in the process they've been toughly vetted.
Well, let me tell you, Peter, that I believe, while I think the Rona Ambrose bill is appropriate and it's good that it's being fast-tracked, I believe that what happened today with the justice probably sent the message even more clearly than 3 hours of sensitivity training for any judge in this country.
But it's not sensitivity training; it's understanding what constitutes consent.
Yeah, but the expression wasn't the point. The point was that watching a judge resign because he was going to be destituted by the House of Commons and the Senate is something that will sink in many more brains than anything you can tell them that they should already know about the law.
What we should also say, though, is that distinguishes this case is it went through a full inquiry and investigation, and a decision was made by the Canadian Judicial Council. That's different than reacting to any comment that some judge makes somewhere in the news, and we've seen too much of that where people will take, I'm not talking about the Nova Scotia case, but other cases where in some cases on highly sensitive trials, a judge will say one sentence that will be taken out of context of the whole trial. And this is very contentious territory. Lots of people think that the judge in the Jean Gomeshi trial was doing outrageous things, and many people would say he was interpreting the law exactly as it should be applied. So these are contentious grounds. We want to, for judges as well as for anybody else, we want to preserve due process.
What about the issue of vetting? You know, you know, we see different situations in terms of judges. We see the Supreme Court judges actually go before a parliamentary committee, but it's kind of softball questions usually that happens. It's not like what we see in a different system south of the border. But beyond the Supreme Court judges, that doesn't happen. I mean, should it happen? Are there any thoughts on that, Jennifer?
That's a tough one. I mean, they are trying to reform the whole system around vetting for Supreme Court justices with a new advisory council and so on. I think that I think time aspect would be one of the considerations, because now you're adding a whole layer of vetting. I don't know. That's a complicated question, Peter.
All right. Well, because it's complicated, we'll leave it at that, and we'll all think about it. Jennifer, great to have you with us again.
Thank you.
Chantal in Montreal. Andrew's in Toronto. We'll see you next budget week, 2 weeks from now. See you then. All right, time now for Mr. Murphy.
Should we pay homage to Canada's most famous separatist, René Lévesque? Coming up later on The National.
All right, Facebook Live fans, we have another 4 minutes or so to talk to you. If you're watching last night, first couple of minutes was, as we say in TV, in black. There was nothing happening. Unfortunately, I was standing here answering your questions, but we had a transmission problem. We're sorry about that, so you caught the last couple of minutes of it. So let's get right to tonight's. There's lots of questions and a real mix here. Peter, this comes from Penny Torrance. Anda, have you ever met the Queen? I have met the Queen. Very nice lady, the Queen. She often meets with the media who are covering her tour, and there's usually one occasion through each tour to do that. Alain Leloup asks, what sports moment has made you cry? I don't think I've ever cried, but you get emotional sometimes when you're really into something. Sidney Crosby's goal, the golden goal in the Vancouver Olympics, was pretty special. Tom Brady's big win in the Super Bowl, and I know there's so many Tom Brady fans out there. Not. I am, though. Joy Rotke asks, Peter, have you ever started planning, or have you started planning for your final broadcast? Final broadcast? What are you talking about? No, I haven't started that yet. Teresa Barrett asks, do you have a secret hidden talent? Wendy Lynette asks, Teresa, if I had a secret hidden talent, it wouldn't be a secret if I told you, right? Yes, I do, but I won't tell you what it is. Wendy Lynette asks, Peter, under the category dessert, what's your sinful pleasure? Chocolate. Jean Jeffrey asks, Peter, what do you do for fun? Golf. David Turner, what hobbies are you taking up when you retire, Peter? Golf. R.Ann Rempel asks, what book are you reading now? Okay, there's a good one. Tim Cook, the Canadian historian, has written a new book on Vimy. I highly recommend it. I'm reading it because we'll be going back to Vimy Ridge in a few weeks' time to do our live coverage of the 100th anniversary of the battle that many say marked Canada in a sense of, well, some argue it was the birthplace of a nation. That's where Canada actually began as a country, even 50 years after Confederation. There's a debate about that. I'm sure we'll get into it on the air. Makwa Ahmed asks, what does integrity mean to you? Good question. It means being honest with yourself, being honest with your friends, being honest with your audience. Honesty, best policy. And to me, I think that's what integrity is about. Have I ever seen a UFO? Bill Paul Buttles asks. No, I have not. Dadir Hassan, who was your role model as a reporter? Many of them. A fellow by the name of Colin Hoth, who you may not remember, but he was the Nationals reporter in Manitoba when I started my career in the 1960s in Churchill, Manitoba, and Colin used to give me lots of great advice. Wonderful guy. Thank you, Al. 1 minute. Matthew Vaughn asks, Peter, what location were you where you covered a news item was your most memorable? Berlin, the weekend the wall came down. I got there a couple of nights after it really started, but it was still going on, and it was, you never forget it. Where's the one place you traveled to that you've never yet been? Well, I'm lucky. I've been a lot of places in the world through this job. Antarctica, though, I have not been to, and I'd love to go. What's your viewpoints on millennials? Are we lazy? None of the millennials I know are lazy. So I would have to say, no, you're not.
15?
Well, there are a bunch more. There's some good ones here, but we've only got 10 seconds left before Rex. And Rex is like pawing at the ground when he's ready to go on. So here he comes.
A federal proposal from Canadian Heritage to honor the late René Lévesque has people raising the question, should Canada honor its most outstanding separatist? When separatism was new and its energies at their wildest, it was a good time to be a Canadian. For that existential contest summoned two men, both from Quebec, to lead the charge for their respective sides. Canada had the inimitable Pierre Trudeau, separatists the indomitable René Lévesque. Trudeau had a mixed English-French ancestry and a mixed set of gifts, the instincts of a street fighter and a brain like a blade, lethal in argument, fearless in attack or defense. Lévesque had the tenacity of a bulldog, unparalleled gifts of spontaneous oratory. He owned the affection of every little guy or gal that ever listened to him. He was, if you will, a real populist, an everyman politician. Overall, I think it was the finest political drama of our whole 150 years. A contest between two sons of Quebec who took it from the angry and mean and even low contest it could have been and made it something larger entirely, a passionate examination of the basis of our very country's being. Lévesque's challenge sharpened our ideas of what Confederation means, updated its understanding, and actively brought the consideration of what we used to call the Quebec fact into minds outside Quebec. Lévesque forced the exercise of Trudeau's resources, political, rhetorical, and intellectual, to their fullest play. Trudeau, in turn, called out all the artfulness, courage, and passion Lévesque was capable of. Each grew larger because of the other. Both gave us Canadian history being conducted in real time, in the open, on hall stages, at press conferences, and constitutional bartering sessions, with echoes everywhere, on the streets, at home, work, and school. Now, as Canadians, there was no question whom we were rooting for. Trudeau was equal to the moment, and then some. But, and this would be my judgment, it would be a small soul indeed who didn't look on René Lévesque in those days of tumult and anxiety without respect for his skills, admiration for his unqualified forthrightness, and let me be bold, real affection for his persona. So, on the idea of honoring him, I say yes. Not for his goal, but for the manner in which he fought for it, for the contest he led, which, perhaps ironically, refined and deepened our understanding and feel for our country. And for keeping the quarrel within the boundaries of law and, in almost all cases, decent conduct. Have we ever had a contest of this consequence where the champions of both sides exemplified the rare quality of high leadership this country can summon when the times demand our best? Lévesque was more an advocate for Quebec than he was in any real sense an enemy of Canada. To subtract him from our history is impossible. To deny him memorial acknowledgement, needlessly small, meanly petty. If I really wanted to clinch the submission, I'd point out that Joey Smallwood, who in his day liked to be called the only living father of Confederation, liked Lévesque and admired Lévesque. Joey would be on side for this. Whatever Smallwood's love for Canada, which was complete, he would still make room for an honest fighter in an opposite corner. And Lévesque was that. For The National, I'm Rex Murphy.
This is Niagara Falls, and if you've noticed a little more foam at its base lately, perhaps it's mainly because of the beer. Beer that's being dumped by the caseload into the custom shed washroom upriver at Fort Erie.
They are bringing more beer than usual on account of the beer strike in Ontario.
One Hamilton man who shuffled off to Buffalo to pick up a couple of six-packs got his comeuppance, but at least he, unlike many others, was able to kiss his beer goodbye.
A Canadian beer drinking tradition is disappearing fast, and the first place they're feeling it is in the Maritimes. What's vanishing are those squat and stubby dark brown bottles.
The Canadian brewery industry has spent millions of dollars to make the change to long-neck bottles, and part of that cost is a result of scenes like this. There's no doubt that Cape Bretoners have done their part to support the brewery industry, and some wonder why the beer couldn't have found its way to a charitable cause. It's a beer drinker's lament. 700 cases of supposedly good brew down the drain, so to speak.
Brewers say the change was inevitable. Light beer has become popular, and American beer and twist-off caps.
I find when you're drinking out of it that it foams up more.
But most beer drinkers have adjusted.
Oh, as long as the beer is still there.
Specialty brewers are on the hop these days, rushing to cash in on more relaxed liquor laws.
Now that Canadian liquor laws are changing, new breweries are springing up all over. There's one in the back of this pub in Kingston, Ontario. But the idea of drinking the stuff that's made in the back room is catching on.
It's got a hell of a lot more body than Canadian beer, I'll tell you that.
It's very smooth, it's very easy to drink.
Okay, Ernie, if you could picture yeast there. Yeah.
Bernie Knudsen has been coming to this so-called U-Brew store for about 3 years. It's easy and it's cheap. Making your own beer and wine in British Columbia is virtually tax-free. You can brew a dozen bottles here for about $10. Buying it at the liquor store would cost $15.
For the working men, yes, it's a working people, the working class people, it's a way better deal.
Most hours have 60 minutes. This hour has 7 days. Tonight, Ralph Nader charges the Detroit car companies with running risks that can't hurt them, but do hurt us.
I could give an example of the Buick Roadmaster in 1953. The one with power brakes came onto the market, many thousands of, with a defective braking system. Now,
you mean in the 53 Buick Roadmaster,
with power
a driver
brakes.
would literally go from normal brakes to no brakes like that?
Right, that's right. This is documented in court records, which is very interesting. It shows you that the only way we find out about these things is through the cumbrous process of the judicial system. So what you want to do is make an overwhelming systematic case to overcome the resistance of industry. The stronger a case you make, the more scientists you have working on the project on an independent, objective basis, the more overpowering the forces of humane automotive technology will be.
So throw your hands up, everybody wild out.
Underground in Tehran, there are hidden weapons of a sort, shocking, powerful, incredibly valuable, and buried. As Nala Ayed explains, what Iran chooses to do with them could help the country connect with the rest of the world.
No doubt, Iran's political art is in a league of its own. Convenient shorthand for us in the West for its hardline views on the world. But it reflects just one view, through one lens on life here. At the Tehran Museum of Modern Art, there's room for the countless others and for more nuanced interpretations. There's even room here for a hidden treasure of almost forgotten Western art. Billions worth, lost to the wider art world for almost 4 decades. Hassan Nafaresti knows the collection well. He's worked here for 20 years.
I want
to reassure you that we're doing our best to preserve the art, he says. It's a national treasure. What's actually considered the finest modern art collection outside the Western world sits in the museum's vault, south of street level. We were given a look, but not allowed a camera beyond that steel door. Secreted inside are Warhols and Picassos. Monet, Dali, and Degas all represented. The most expensive, a $400 million piece by American Jackson Pollock. Some 1,500 relics of a once deep connection to the Western world. Their banishment reflects a difficult relationship, not just with the West, but with Iran's own pre-revolution past. It was back in the pro-West days of the Shah that his wife, empress and art lover Farah Pahlavi, had buyers put the collection together in the 70s. Back around when Andy Warhol visited to make a portrait of her. The portrait was apparently destroyed when the Islamic Revolution erupted. The Shah was deposed, he and his wife exiled, and the precious collection stowed away for safekeeping in the vault of the museum she had built to display it. And where it's been ever since, a hostage of circumstance. The only Western art permanently displayed here are the fixed outdoor sculptures. But in recent years, some of the paintings have occasionally been exhibited. But not all, because with the conservative laws here, this Renoir, for instance, would never be displayed.
ولی تو بخشی نمیخوایم هم اینا رو رد کنیم.
We don't want to get rid of these pieces because they have value, he says. Only a tenth of the collection is affected. But as the country tries to forge more links with the West after the landmark nuclear deal, there's room for the art to become a blunt instrument of soft power. But it is fraught. A Berlin show that promised a fine display of the art of diplomacy was just canceled when Iran's president failed to sign the export permit. It isn't clear why. And so the pieces stay locked away in their vault, a powerful diplomatic arsenal in a dialogue still waiting to happen. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Tehran.
Still ahead, a memorable meeting with the Queen, a castle for sale, and a special restaurant serving up much more than a tasty plate. But first, let's check today's business numbers. The TSX was down 14 points. The Canadian dollar fell 1/10 of a cent. In New York, the Dow was largely unchanged, and the price of oil dipped $1 a barrel.
I'm Anna Maria Tremonti. Tomorrow on The Current, with the rise of violent hooliganism at soccer matches, one Russian politician wants to turn these brawls into an organized spectator sport. That's on The Current, weekdays at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
Say they have never seen anything like it around the Lincoln Memorial, or for that matter, anywhere else here in the capital of the United States.
We lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time.
This park area on the Washington Mall, right underneath the Capitol Dome, has been the gathering place for many demonstrations. But none quite so strange as this collection of uniformed veterans, complete with medals and toy machine guns. The anti-war movement in this country is an ever-changing phenomenon. You never know quite what to expect next.
William H. Carroll from Atlanta, Georgia. 26 air medals and all the other stuff that goes with it.
Washington was the scene today of the largest anti-nuclear demonstration ever held in the U.S.
4, 6, 8, we don't want to radiate. 2, 4, 6, 8, we don't want to radiate.
If you're not building for the future, you're stealing from it.
They call the Supreme Court decision a tragic mistake. And on this, the 10th anniversary of legalized abortions, 26,000 marchers vowed to begin a second decade of protest.
Organizers are calling it the biggest pro-choice rally in history.
We will never give up. We will never give up. We will never give in. We will never give in.
From Capitol Hill to the Washington Monument, they formed an awesome mass of people. Not the 1.5 million the organizers claimed, but the largest ever gathering of Black Americans.
We're not here to tear down America. America is tearing itself down. We are here to rebuild the wasted cities.
This was exactly the image organizers wanted, a pageant of Americans before a national icon. Summoned by a political commentator and a champion of conservatives.
This day is a day that we can start the heart of America again.
Look around you, you're not alone. You are Americans.
The National.
The National.
Tonight.
So throw your hands up, everybody wild
The Queen honored Iraq and Afghanistan veterans today, including Sergeant Mark Lunn and Corporal Michelle Lunn. But their son stole the show. 2-year-old Alfie squirmed and complained his way through a short audience with the Queen. She didn't seem to mind. From the House of Windsor to a House of Tudor, a castle once owned by Henry VIII is up for sale. It's now a hotel with 28 bedrooms and will run you about $14 million. Of course, the honeymoon suite warrants caution. After they got married, King Henry came here with Anne Boleyn. She was later beheaded. A new restaurant has opened in Regina. Like all businesses, the owners are hoping to do well. But as the CBC's Stephanie Skandaris tells us, they're also hoping to do good.
Okay, the first Indian taco. Who wants to get that one? Okay.
Order up, using its nickname, and the Bannock House is in business. Over the lunch rush on its grand opening, the small restaurant fills up, the kitchen churning out the house special, Bannock. It's a staple of Indigenous cuisine, served up fried or baked, plain or used as a bed for toppings.
It was awesome. Really good Bannock.
I think it'll do positive things.
The Bannock here serves a bigger purpose. It funds the community development work done by the All Rise project.
We came together because we were identifying some gaps in services within the community, but also a really strong need to work with other organizations within the community and contribute to addressing those gaps.
Okay, then we're going to leave it for about 15 minutes.
One of those needs is teaching young people workplace skills through training and placements. All Rise places some of its participants in the Bannock House kitchen. This is 17-year-old David Blondo's first job.
I was looking to support myself, and now I have the means to support myself.
Besides employing youth, the Bannock House also funds an Indigenous Women's Center in Regina.
Behind those walls is the first women's-only sweat lodge in Regina. Now that's sacred space, so we don't take our cameras there. But the women here tell me it's an important way to raise the spirit of Indigenous women and to embrace a spirit of unity of all nations.
Women from all backgrounds are invited to attend the lodge.
When you gather women, it's very strong. When anybody gathers to pray, it's very strong. This is nothing new to Fifth Avenue in Regina, Saskatchewan. We've been ceremoning, our ancestors have been ceremoning here for years. And so we're just renewing that again once more on this land.
Next on the menu, more community outreach, including an expansion into evening courses. All possible as long as the Bannock House stays busy. Stephanie Skandaris, CBC News, Regina.
That's the National this Thursday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Peter Mansbridge. Thanks for watching.